Welcome to Empowered Life Hacks, where we share with you an explosion of tips to help you overcome your daily struggles. Pay attention for the audio and visual cues, and this will let you know when an actionable idea is right on its way.
Hey everybody, welcome to Empowered Life Hacks. Eric here, and here is my friend Radha. Lovely seeing you today, Radha.
Hi Eric, nice to be on your show.
Well, it'll be our show today. For the reason being, Radha has some valuable knowledge on the topic of self-esteem and fitting in. And I saw her blossom on LinkedIn and grow her follower base, and she really vouches on being authentic and finding your true self. And what we learned from even documentaries like The Social Dilemma, it's increasingly harder, especially since 2012 when they fixed all these algorithms. And there's some stats here. I'm going to share them, and then I'm going to share the definition of kind of like self-esteem. And then Radha will get into her journey and share some tips to overcome this demon today. So one thing I learned, I got a few statistics here, okay, guys? So one is over 70% of girls ages between 15 to 17 avoid normal daily activities such as attending school when they feel bad about their looks, right? 75% of girls with low self-esteem reported engaging in negative activities like cutting, bullying, smoking, all that stuff. And about 20% of all teens struggle with depression before adulthood, right? And this is a big whammy. And I've talked to Radha about this before, and we'll get into this afterwards. But the top wish amongst teens, but especially females, are that their parents communicate with them better, right? And it's not only just parental communication. Essentially, we want communication from anyone who will give us that kind of care and understanding. Often we look to parents for that. But Radha's going to get in today how we can kind of look at our environment and adjust to it to make sure that we have a higher self-esteem and can kind of navigate a little more happily through life, especially as a youth. So Radha, if you want to just start about your journey and maybe how you came to be today on LinkedIn and your purpose and everything like that.
Sure. So thank you for inviting me, Eric, and nice to talk to your audience. I will admit that I have been one of those awkward teenagers myself. When I first came to this country, I came here as a teenager and went straight to a private design school in New York City. And culturally, I come from India, from a small town, and all of a sudden, like being part of this metropolitan city and the environment was quite challenging, to say the least. I distinctly remember, I'll go straight to my story and then come back to more about me. But I was sitting in the waiting area and getting ready for my interview for the school, because I had just received an invitation to come and join the school, and I had to show up for an interview. And as I'm sitting in the hall or like whatever waiting area, I'm looking around me and everyone looks so different. Everyone had colored hair, piercing, tattoo, torn jeans. And here I was, like, I almost felt like I was from Mars, like looked like an alien. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I fit in. Do I really want to get admission here? So I kind of skeptically walk into the interviewer's room, and her very first question, looking at my appearance, I was wearing a full-length T-shirt and jeans. Nothing was torn about it, or nothing was fancy about it. And the interviewer, her very first question was, are you sure you want to interview for admission here? I mean, are you comfortable? She didn't say you will fit in, but that's what she alluded to. So I that was where I started, right? So even though there was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety within me of like fitting in, and I don't know if I belong here, I just took a brave, courageous step, and I said, yes, this is the first place that has offered me admission, and I'm going to take it, and I'll make it work. Like, that's the spirit I had when I accepted the admission. And the very first day of class, I walk into the class, and I grew up in India, right, with British English. For us to say, hi, how are you, is decent enough for a teenager, right? I mean, yeah, it's very respectful, but that's what I grew up with. And here I walk into a classroom filled with people who were all about, hey, what's up? And there was such a big contrast, even with our greeting. So with that, I did settle into the class. And very first question I had for my instructor, I raised my hand and I said, "Sir, I have a question." And oh my God, like the 15 people I had in my classroom, everyone turned around and looked at me as if like I had like horns growing over my head. And I just came across as like total like misfit. So I was like, okay, well, I took my hand a little down and I was like, again, like, Mr. Smith, I have a question. And then all of a sudden, the instructor kind of understood my anxiety or nervousness. And he was like, come here. And he took me out of the classroom and he's like, my name is Bob. Call me Bob. This is America. We don't call instructors a teacher, or I mean like sir, madam, or even like by their last name. I was like completely shocked as a teenager, like, oh my God, like first day of class and my instructor is already confronting me about how I should come across. So that took me really into this spiral of self-doubt, questioning myself. And I did that for about, I would say, first 3-4 months. I did not ask any more questions. I completely took a back seat when it came to participation or engagement in the classroom, just out of not knowing, like, am I going to say something and make a fool of myself? But slowly and gradually, once I started getting grades and it seemed normal, like A grades and A plus, that people around me started accepting me for who I am. And going forward, there wasn't such a big difference other than our dressing style, for me to participate and be one of them. So the moral of the story here is, yes, it was challenging, and yes, it will always be challenging to be who you are, no matter where you are. It's all about, do you believe in yourself? Are you clear enough on who you are, what you want to stand for? And if that's how you show up in the world, people will embrace you. And that has been my experience. And thank you for inviting me, Eric, because I am really passionate about the two topics we are talking here today, which is fitting in and communication. Fitting in, as I showed you from my own example, I mean, this has been the very first time 22 years back when I came to this country. Since then, every step along the way, whether it was my first job, whether it was my first relation, it has always been a challenge to kind of find my footing, so to speak, and really try to fit in. Apart from that, communication was a big thing because I came with British English. We don't say schedule, we say schedule. We don't say often, we say often. So there were so many such things where I was kind of like, the moment I would utter, and I'm like, oh no, that's not how they say it. And I had to always self-correct. But once I let go of my wanting to fit in, I think that is when I really fit in.
And I can see that because you always do preach that authenticity and going for your purpose, but true to you. And I can see why for you that means so much, because that's where you actually found you fit in.
Yes.
Did you find, for example, that when you were trying to fit in or were more sensitive about it, almost people can sense that, like unconsciously, and were responding to you differently, potentially?
Yes, just imagine if I am uncomfortable about my appearance right now, or I'm uncomfortable about the words I utter or the English or the accent that I speak with, it will make you even more conscious to interact with me. Not intentionally, but that is a human tendency, human reaction. When the other person in front of you is kind of little dicey, skeptical, unsure about themselves, You as a second person or a third person in the conversation, you don't know how to behave with them. And I think a lot of it is then as a spiral, like it just rolls down, because now you don't understand me, I will not make an effort to understand you, and then it will just continue. So I think whoever understands or realizes the value of fitting in, or the cost of not fitting in, should really take the initiative and be open and be approachable. Because a lot of times you don't know everything about my culture, you don't know everything about my childhood, how I grew up, what makes me who I am today. So for me to kind of sit back and expect for you to behave a certain way that is conducive to my own conditioning is a little too much to expect. And I think that is what we are doing as a society. And we are failing miserably because we're not genuinely making real connections. Because a part of you always hesitates to be vulnerable, to be accepted for who you are.
And that kind of hesitancy that people pick up on, and then they're kind of peculiar, like, why is this person that way? And it's, you kind of said it was, it's almost like a ping pong game where you're sending back these emotions, but you don't interpret what the sender's sending. Why is he shooting it hard? Why is he putting a curved ball on the ball, right? And you're over analyzing everything, and then it just negatively affects the whole entire situation. And that's because why I was sharing some of those stats where it was like, people are doing a lot of self harm and aren't participating and have eating disorders, and it's, a lot of it is about fitting in. Going into depression often is feeling misunderstood. The complexity of the environment makes you feel like you can't handle it. So it's kind of like, kind of spinballing off that, how do we stop that spinballing effect where we're feeling kind of negative, down, and self-conscious, and then the world kind of reflects that back to us? Is there like a point where there's something you can do or think before that happens or while it's happening to mitigate it?
Yes, there is. And I'm glad you asked, because in hindsight, I'm able to really connect the dots of what I personally did to kind of maintain my sanity and not try too hard to fit in, was really taking a step back. What happens is when you are in such an anxious situation, your impulsive reaction is to react and kind of act out. And I personally am big advocate on take a step back when you don't understand people, when you are questioning and you are in that doubtful state. Take a step back and really like evaluate, get clarity within yourself. Who am I? What do I want to stand for? What am I really here for? Like, for example, when I joined that school, I was so passionate about design. I wanted to learn about contemporary architecture and design, and that was my goal. Was my goal to really be liked by my peers? I mean, that would be nice, but that's a bonus, right? So when you're really clear on your purpose, you're able to stand your ground. And once you stand your ground, other people around you really know how to behave with you. So for example, I was one of those oddballs or rare people who did not smoke, who did not do drugs, who did not party hard, right? Did not do alcohol. And that is very strange for a student, that to a design student going to a private college in New York City, right? But I knew how much I wanted to cross that line and how much I wanted to kind of hold on to what I really believed. So the people around me adjusted. Like they would not ask me to go for a smoke downstairs. Like they would know that Radha is not going to come with us, and she will wait here for 10-15 minutes until we all come back, right? So there was communication, which is key, because I can't expect them to know what my preferences are. I have to speak up. I have to communicate that this is what I want to go about or do in my life. And that's how they know where I draw the boundary and what are my thresholds. I think a lot of teenagers, I think they struggle because we are not clear on our boundaries. We are not clear on our own thresholds. Like, what is acceptable to me? How far would I want to go? And that is key for any teenager to really be comfortable in their own skin. Because let's talk about appearance for a second, right? Because that is one of the stats you had talked about, is a lot of teenage, especially girls,
That's true.
struggle with their image, right? Because those are your puberty years. I mean, you have pimples and you're not looking at your best all the time, and there is so much pressure to fit into a mold that is shown on a glamorous magazine picture, and you are basically aspiring to be that. I would say take a step back, really look at yourself. I mean, do I have to look like that magazine picture? I mean, yeah, there are certain styles and fashion I might do to kind of mimic a little bit of that to get the spirit of it. But to really look like that picture and to go to that extent, to go out of my character, out of my own personality, my own persona, to really fit into that mold doesn't make sense. So I think part of it, yes, it is advertising and marketing and things around you, but then part of it, I think it's also taking personal responsibility. I can challenge you, but it's up to you to want to be challenged or not.
Indeed. Yeah, it's you have to take ownership over your belief system, over your values, over how far you're going to go when you get tempted, and over your communication. And you mentioned some like very, I think, critical questions we can go back on that were quite simple. Are there some questions one can ask themselves regarding like maybe just finding their why and grounding themselves? You mentioned a few, but I'd just like to see if there's anything we can dig deeper there. And
Yeah,
then after, yeah, please do. Yeah.
no, go ahead.
I was saying after we could go more into how you could maybe take notes and ask different questions regarding like your boundaries. But first, I'd be more curious about like the why and like grounding yourself.
Yeah. So I follow a simple process that now over the years I have distilled into 3 clear steps,
Hmm.
and that is something that is kind of proposed in my upcoming book, which I'm writing at the moment. And it is very simple to remember. First and foremost, clarify. Clarify who you are, where do you want to go, and what's the real intent or purpose of what you're doing, right? So for example, if I'm just showing up in the college for the sake of it because my parents have paid the fees, it's a whole different mindset and attitude versus me wanting to have a career, me wanting to have a vocation, and me wanting to pursue something that is going to stretch and bring me out of my comfort zone. So I think knowing that difference is really important. And I call that a very first step, which is clarify. Clarify your intentions, clarify your goals, clarify everything that you can possibly clarify about you. It's like, in layman terms, like make sure you look in the mirror, you have put on your shirt, your pants, your shoes, and you are in a decent shape before you step out of your room or before you step out of your house, right? So it is that personal hygiene, personal clarity before going out. Second step is simplify. Now, the reason intentionally simplify is second, because most often people are taught in schools and colleges to simplify first. So like let's talk about um, you want to have a creative career, right? So all you are pursuing is arts colleges, and you go after simplifying your life by saying, okay, I'm only going to go after arts colleges. But you have not clarified up front, what does interest me? Is it fashion? Is it interior design? Is it graphic design? Is it animation? So I think people over here, I have noticed in the education system, is like people join college first and then figure out what stream to follow. And I personally, I'm a big proponent on figure out what you want to do. Why waste the 2 years of general education when you could really hone into your skills? So same thinking applies here. So it's clarify, then it's simplify. Because now with clarity, you know what to simplify. You will never regret your simplification if you had clarity up front. The only time we regret in life is we have gone too far to simplify without clarifying our intentions. So a part of us always lives in this FOMO, which is fear of missing out. And that is the best way to not have FOMO, is clarify, then simplify. And then last step is amplify. Whatever you like, whatever you're pursuing, stick to it and let it shape you, rather than saying, okay, well, I have noticed this as in my coaching sessions with certain generations, where people are too quick to give up. Like, for example, I have had a design job for 2 years and I'm not getting promoted. I'm not getting big projects. So all of a sudden, I lose interest in being a designer. And I think that is too quick to judge and to like discard your passion that you had been nurturing for all your life by just certain parameters not falling based on your own timeline. So I truly believe that whatever you clarify and you have simplified, give it enough time for it to amplify. Because let's say, for example, right now I'm here sitting and talking to you about fitting in after 22 years, right? Perhaps when I was an 18-year-old struggling and going through all of this, I might not have the what do you call, the necessary confidence or the passion or the aptitude to really show up as an example that really what I'm saying works. I had to give enough time for it to amplify. I had to see that it works not only in my college life, it works in my career, it works in my personal relations, it works everywhere. That is when I'm sitting here and advocating it, right? So it requires time and requires patience. But to make it simple for any teenager out there, just 3 simple steps: clarify, simplify, and amplify. You can do this yourself. Do this for everything. I mean, even playing a video game, because when you're playing a video game, you lose track of time, right? You lose track of like, oh my God, I had homework to do. I really wanted to pursue this, and now my parents are mad at me, and my girlfriend is not happy with me. There could be zillion things, right? Because you never had clarity up front. What is your priority? What matters, right? Is it school homework? Maybe then I should just spend 1 hour, concentrated time, get it out of the way, talk to my girlfriend, make sure my parents are happy, and that's when I hit the gaming station, but not having that clarity gets you into trouble. And then it's a spiral, which ends up then trickling down to every aspect of your life.
It makes sense that it would trickle down too, especially because clarity actually gives you a sense of what to measure.
Yes.
Right. And once you know what to measure, so is journaling a component of that as well?
Yes, I personally advocate I'm a big proponent on communication, right? So when we say communication, usually people think it's verbal, it's visual, it's what we hear, auditory, and I think so much more. Communication is even with your own self. Have you ever taken time to step back and just listen to your body? Is it aching? Is it hurting? Am I happy with what I see? We don't spend enough time to be our own friends. Just imagine if you and I were right now wanting to bond and really become close friends, what is the first thing we would do? Spend time with each other. try to communicate in a way where we understand each other, right? If we were to do that with ourselves first before going out and making other friends, we would really serve a larger purpose. Because it's not going to only help you in your teenage years, but now you have a good relationship with yourself. It will help your future relations, it will help your career, it will help every life choices that you will ever make throughout your life. So I think the basic education should really start with, are you happy with yourself? Are you your best friend? Are you spending enough time with yourself? And then going out and connecting with others. Because if you are not comfortable communicating to yourself, what makes you confident or comfortable communicating with a third person or someone outside you, right? And I think a lot of teenagers are struggling with this, and parents, um, some parents are supportive, some parents are challenging. And I think that puts the teenager in a bad spot, because now there is conflict, there is friction, and that is not good for anyone's well-being. So best way for a parent to help a teenager be comfortable with themselves is really to make room and make space for them to accept and be who they are. And how do you as a parent make that space? Is by taking a step back.
Mhm.
Because every time something is broken, our first tendency or impulsive reaction is to go and pick it up and fix it, especially when it's your child. I have had so many such episodes with my parents where they would not want me to fall, they would not want me to make mistakes, and they just want to, like, pick up and shelter and protect me. And that was not really serving. So at some point, when I grew up as an adult and I came to this country, a lot of things I did not share with them, because I had to fight my own battles. I had to come about and flourish as an individual that I want to be, rather than living in someone's shelter and protection. And what, God forbid, if they're not around, I will struggle. So being independent and rather being interdependent is very important. And knowing the difference is even more important.
Certainly a balance. And
Yeah.
I think you kind of touched on two important things there. One is, if you don't care for yourself, love yourself, or know yourself, how can others do the same for you? And how can you choose those people, right? Based on that. And another thing is that, friends are the family we get to choose. And the reason I say that is because we learn that, teens would like their parents to communicate a lot better with them. And sometimes you don't always get the parental guidance you would like in life. You don't get the teachers in life you would like, the leadership you would like, but you can certainly mentor yourself through proper communication and patiently find people that can support you as part of your support network. Amidst, obviously, the journaling and actively and mindfully living and all that. Um, One thing I wanted to touch on is boundaries really quick. It's quite simple, but is there anything you can elaborate on in terms of like boundaries, like a simple maybe mindful practice as you go throughout your day, regardless of age? You can say like a checklist, like a walking checklist for boundaries.
So boundaries also somewhere goes back to that clarifies phase that we talked about, having clarity.
Hmm.
What is acceptable to me? Like, how far can I go? Right? How much is acceptable for someone to encroach my space, someone to dictate, someone to control me? Those are the things. When I say boundary, that is what I mean. Is what is acceptable to you. So, for example, I have really healthy, great friendships, even from my college days. But those have survived for these 22 years is because at some point I was very vocal about what is acceptable to me, how far will I go, and not having any judgments or objections about their own life choices. So, for example, for me to sit back and say, just because I don't do something, that is not a good thing, is a judgment.
Mm.
And a lot of times, I think our society, especially Western society, is very much opinionated, right? Just because I believe in certain thing, like, that is the right thing to do, and I will wholeheartedly go out in public and vouch for my opinion. Whereas it makes me less sensitive to people who don't share the same opinion. So that is where we lose our compassion and kindness, right? Not everyone has to look the same. I mean, look at twins, right? Twins are my best example. They look alike. They probably were born by the same parents, right? And they grew up in the same household. But if you look at their personality, what they like, what they dislike, they're very different people. So we all individuals are made to be unique, not special. I will make sure that teenagers remember that. Not special, but you are made to be unique. So embrace that uniqueness. Don't try to be like someone else. You can get inspirations, but inspiration is very different from trying to mimic someone, trying to change and alter a part of you so that you look and feel and sound like someone else. And that's where the difference is. And a lot of people don't really understand the difference. And that's where they also don't have boundaries, right? So boundaries are so important in life. I think these are the lessons that should be taught in schools and colleges. But instead, life teaches you those lessons, and sometimes hard way and painful ways.
It certainly does, and it's unfortunate. And so people know, this is a big reason we have people like Radha on the show, is that I didn't learn how to develop a proper mindset in school, how to read effectively, break down books. I didn't learn a mindful practice or learn the benefits of meditation. You learn that all on your own. And often what happens is people find out that you haven't learned it and they want to send you to a 6-month seminar, make you take this big expensive course. And our goal is that we want to provide you immediately simple, actionable tips you can provide without going to school, right? Because who cares you have an MBA if you have the lowest of self-esteem, right? You're feeling incompetent and inadequate, which is essentially the feelings of not fitting in. And that's kind of what we wanted to give you today. I know why Radha was so passionate and willing to come on here is because hopefully this gives you some inspiration and guidance as an adult too, but especially as the youth of tomorrow, of a simple framework you can apply to overcome the pressures you face as a young person trying to grow and become successful in this world. So without too much further ado with kind of summarizing everything here, but Radha, would you like to say some final words before we head out today?
Yes, no, I do want to say one thing which I think was very valuable in those challenging years myself as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in you. I believe in you, whoever you are sitting across the screen, because it is very, very important to hear that. And this is the time that you're hearing from me. But I want you to go and practice this yourself. I believe in me. And the moment you actually start believing in yourself, and sometimes, yes, it is fake it until you make it, it your life will really not change. Your life changes when you believe in yourself and you take the reins in your own hands. Don't let the world, don't let the magazine tell you how beautiful you are. You are beautiful because that's how you feel. That's what you know. That's what you believe. It doesn't matter what your friend thinks. It doesn't matter what the magazine says. So I just want to encourage everyone listening to this is take a moment. And if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, why would anyone else do that?
Radha, I felt that. That was heavy. You know, like that was like something out of a movie. Like, I don't know. I felt like I just watched a feature film and I was almost shedding a tear and just crazy stuff right there, guys. Powerful, impactful things. I hope that inspired you because I was sweating a bit after that Oscar performance for real. I know it was genuine, but good work, Radha. Thank you for delivering that message home. I really appreciate you. I look forward to connecting with you again and again. And thanks for everybody for joining today.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks so much for checking that episode out. If you've been following us from day one, you know we try and have a little story, and it's pretty much all connected in some way. Each episode builds and builds and builds. And if you look at the last two episodes, right, we had Radha come in and just kill it, right? Basically, talk about how we can have that feeling of not fitting in and use it to actually find ourself, and that unique piece of ourself ends up being the piece of the puzzle everyone needs. But before that, we also talked about how to go for it if you're just uncomfortable. Strategies to actually, once you start figuring out who you are and develop your boundaries, to go fit in. And we're having an episode coming up in 2 weeks from now on the Monday with Jason Lee. And he's coming to talk about how to grab your challenges, the challenges you hate that you have disdain for, the ones that just make you feel like giving up. And using that to find your passion. And these 3 episodes collectively together really provide someone out there with a framework for finding themselves, pushing their boundaries gently, starting to meet new people, and finding passion, purpose through the crap that they hate, really. So check us out. Can't wait to basically try and empower you guys, empower parents, empower the kids, empower people within their organizations and leaders, and help people that feel like they don't have the capacity to see they really do have the capacity to be themselves, to find themselves, and push those barriers slowly but surely. Thank you so much for kicking it with us. Appreciate y'all. Have a good one. Ciao.